Hi, I'm Jim from Northeast Wisconsin. I had a 33-year career in the nuclear power industry. I was a shift manager at a local power plant here, so I do have some knowledge of mechanical issues and quality control. Quality is very important to me. I found the most important points of the Koenders Windmill components were made in Canada or the United States. Here's a Garlock diaphragm made in the United States. Here's the tubing that was made by Nature's Pond, powered by Koenders Water Solutions Incorporated, made in Canada. And they even included an extra bag of spare parts in case I lost them while during assembly. And I did drop a few pieces, so it was handy to have that. I consider myself a conservationist with strong environmental awareness. I started my 40-acre wildlife preserve back in the 1990, and I planted 10,000 trees, developed a wetland, and dug my 1/3 acre pond. I have had some fish kill in the past. The way I controlled oxygen levels in the past without a windmill was to clear the snow off the ice, and that would allow photosynthesis to occur with the phytoplankton in the pond. That worked good for about 3 years, just long enough for my smallmouth bass to get about 10 inches in length and ready for harvesting. Unfortunately, that winter I had real thick, cloudy ice, and the sunlight could not get through, so the oxygen production dropped off and without any photosynthesis occurring, and the fish were all floating under the ice come spring. So that's why I decided to purchase a windmill. I'm also treating my pond with Nature's Pond dye, and the Nature's Pond conditioner, and there is 0% copper sulfate synthetic dyes or toxic chemicals in this, and I chose that because I'm developing this for my grandchildren now who are going to be swimming in the pond, and we're also fishing in the pond, and the fish forage in the pond in that water and absorb any of the chemicals that you may be putting in there. So I decided to go chemical free with them, and for all of our safety. And also now with the COVID pandemic, something I've always thought of, that is my reserve water supply should the worst thing ever happen. And COVID's here, we really don't know where that's going to end up. If I had to, I could extract water from my pond. I could filter it, boil it, and drink it. So I do not want to be putting chemicals in it. As you can see, we have very light winds today, like almost none, and the windmill is still turning. I swear, 3 miles per hour it turns, and I get pressure built up on the pressure gauge and bubbles coming up through the pond. So that works very well. I have a double diaphragm unit. They sell single diaphragm windmills also, but it increased my air capacity for my 1/3 acre pond, which is about an average of 10 feet deep. I highly recommend installing the freeze protection system. I did not do that initially. I was just trying to cut costs a little bit, and I thought it would be fine up here on top of the hill. Any moisture in there should drain down, and I sadly underestimated how much moisture was in the air between 26 degrees Fahrenheit and 36 degrees Fahrenheit. And the line did freeze up my first winter, and I have to put some alcohol in the line, and it would thaw out and continue working. So now I put this freeze protection system on. It's a plastic tank with a pressure control valve underneath it, which you can't quite see here. But if the line gets some moisture in and plugs up, then the pressure builds and opens up the valve in the bottom of the tank, and alcohol slowly drains down. And I did not have to use that much alcohol over the course of the year by putting the diffuser in service that was in a shallower part of the pond. I think I'm running like around 8-10 feet right now, so my pressure in the whole system is reduced, and when it does build up, it relieves and puts the alcohol down the line quite well. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I highly recommend that in any of your freezing temperatures. ponds add another dimension to a property. When I put that in back in 91, 92, it just opened the whole place up. All the habitat I had and the food and property that I had, it brought more wildlife in to enjoy, and it has just continued to add. So ponds are a great thing. The windmill brings out all those advantages even more. I'd also like to share one last hint. My good buddy Rito was a professional nuclear mechanic, and he helped me assemble the windmill tower. And there are joints on here that have multiple pieces that have to fit quite tightly together. So we used a drift pin in there, but then you had to pull the drift pin out and try to get the bolt in, and it was a little bit challenging until we figured out, oh, if we just, while we have the drift pin in there and everything aligned, we would clamp that joint with a small vice grip, then we could extract the drift pin, put the hardened steel bolts in, and tighten them up, and that worked really, really well. That's a hint that you definitely want to consider doing, and aids in construction very well. I did mention that there's spare parts that come with it. I was real pleased to see the quality of the hardware. These are all grade 5 bolts in here, and I believe I saw some grade 8. I don't recall offhand, but I thought there were some grade 8 bolts in there. I have this secured to the ground with some 3-foot concrete footings that I put in, and then there's pipes that go into that concrete, and the tower clamps readily to there. Behind it, I don't know if you can see, but I did put a rest in. I put a couple posts in the ground with a horizontal post across, and that way I can lower the tower to do any maintenance, greasing or whatever, periodically. It lowers real easily with my 4-wheeler winch. It's hinged. I also purchased the hinge brackets for these 2 legs. I highly recommend that because it makes it easy to erect it, easy to take it down. So we just lower it with the winch and the weight of the windmill and drop it down onto the wood rest I have behind here. It could be portable, but mine's sunk in to the ground 3 feet. So, additionally, what I learned my first winter is my pond is fairly deep where one of the diffusers is, and I was using it in like 14, 15 feet of water. Water's about a half a pound per foot, and so my system pressure was running up near 10, 11 psi, and the control valve starts to simmer at that point, and it was using more alcohol than it needed to. So what I ended up doing was I switched to my shallower diffuser, which is in about 8 feet of water. That runs the system pressure up around 4 to 5 psi. Then the pressure control valve or the relief valve were not near the simmering set points, and the system worked very well last winter that way. So I would just recommend not necessarily putting the diffuser in the deepest part of the pond, and also I do have trout in there. If the temperature of the water gets to 72 degrees, they will not survive. So you don't want that cold water getting mixed up down at the bottom with the warm water. You want it to stay cold down there. So for 2 reasons, don't necessarily put the diffuser in the deepest part of the pond. Keeps it cold down there for the trout, and it allows the system pressure to operate at a pressure that is more efficient use of the freeze protection system and keeps aerating the pond. Thank you.